Hey you, and welcome to the podcast. So excited that you're here today. You are in for such a treat. If you are a parent with a teenager, you know the challenges that teens face today in our world, dealing with all of the obstacles and all of the new norms, if you will, all of the things that we're attempting to help them to traverse. You know the difficulty of being a parent of a teen. And there is something to help you. There's a profound resource available to you through a podcast that is called the Uncommon Teen Podcast. It is so amazing, and it's by my precious friend, Jamie Kirschner. Jamie Kirschner is a Christian life coach for teens, and she does group coaching, she does life coaching, she does all of the most amazing things to help young teens become who they are meant to be. Even more, in the month of July of 2024, she has a forthcoming event, a conference at a center in Tennessee that she is holding called the Uncommon Teen Live. And it's going to be the most powerful event. It's going to be a conference that's really going to help your teen to not only partner with you, because you're invited to take your teen. It's for moms and daughters, right? It's for teen girls and their moms or their mentor. It's going to help them to live boldly and confidently. And she's going to be stepping you through how to do how they should do what they need to do in order to become who they are meant to become. I love it because part of what she says about the Uncommon Teen Live conference that is coming up, about this 2-day conference, is that she's subtitling it Dare to Be. Dare to be beautiful, dare to be confident, dare to shine. Jamie is the most precious woman. You're going to see just after listening to this interview that I had the pleasure of having her on my podcast as a guest. You're going to hear her heart. You're going to see that this Uncommon Teen Live conference on July 19th and 20th, it's going to be in Tennessee. You're going to see that it is worth your time. Tickets are on sale right now. There will be details in this particular podcast, but I don't want to waste any more time with all the fluff talk up ahead, right? Like, I want to just drop you right into this episode so you can hear the heart of Jamie Kirschner, the voice behind Uncommon Teen. All right, on to the podcast. Well, here she is, everybody. Jamie Kirschner, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Sherrie.
Oh, absolutely. It's my honor. I have a teenager upstairs who's absolutely giddy over the fact that I even know you. She's like, what? Are you serious? That's amazing. Jamie, I'm hopeful that what we could do, because I think what you're doing here in the Uncommon Teen podcast and what you're doing with your conference and all of these things is what you're doing is so amazing. And I really would like to get an opportunity for others to know a little bit more about you, maybe more behind the scenes in the way that I've had an opportunity over these last couple of years to get to know you and to see your servant's heart. But I'm wondering if we could start off the interview by you just telling us a little bit about who you are, maybe how long you've been coaching teens, just to kind of give us a little bit more background about you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I am Jamie, and I have had a heart for teens since I was 18 years old. I actually didn't grow up in a Christian home, grew up in a lot of craziness, a lot of chaos in my home. And I had friends who were Christians from the time I was in kindergarten all the way through my senior year of high school. But nobody ever told me about Jesus until my senior year of high school when somebody invited me to church with them. And that changed my life forever. And so after that, I was like radically on fire for God.
Yeah.
Started going to work at a Christian camp after I graduated high school, just because I wanted to do something. They needed a cook. Like I always tell everybody, it wasn't anything glorifying. I wasn't like this like person giving the messages or this worship leader or anything like that. I was a cook at this camp, and because they needed, I was like, yeah, let's do this. And so that summer changed my life forever. I remember one night I was walking around the campgrounds and I had come upon this group of girls, and I was so shy, like so painfully shy. I came up upon this group of girls though, and like something on the inside was just like, well, it's God. But I didn't learn that at that time. But it was like, you need to talk to those girls. And so I went and talked to the girls, and I found out that they were from a foster home, a youth home that was next to the camp where I was working. And I got to hear their stories, and I could relate with them because I should have been in foster care, but I wasn't. And so I could relate a little bit. I could try that again. I could relate with them, and I got to share with them what Jesus did on the inside of me. It was more than just like the stories that we hear, but
Right.
it was like he literally changed my life.
Mm.
And I remember the hope that sprang up in their eyes that night. And they were like, "You mean I don't have to follow in the same path as parents?" And I'm like, "No, you don't." And like that was that moment that God spoke to my heart, and I knew it was him at that
Right.
time.
Right.
Like he spoke to my heart and said, "This is," well, I'm like tearing up over here.
I know you are.
This is what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. And I was like, let's go.
Wow.
So I've been in youth ministry for now 24 years. That was in 2020, whenever I first started in camp ministry, moved on to youth ministry, have been with my current youth ministry now. This is our 20th year at our
Wow.
current youth ministry, and it is an honor. I've been coaching girls, started in Common Teen in 2020,
Mhm.
whenever, I guess I said it, I started in 2020. I started in 2000, the year
Yeah.
2000.
Yeah.
I started Uncommon Teen in 2020.
Yeah.
And really what started Uncommon Teen was that first Wednesday night we didn't have youth service and we had to meet online. And I was like, God, how am I supposed to reach these teens? Like,
Right.
this is what my purpose is. If I
Right.
can't even see them, how am I supposed to reach them?
Right.
And he had been talking to me for several years before I started Uncommon
Yeah.
Teen. And I was like, okay, okay. And so he told me that night, he said, "You're not just holding yourself back, you're holding these girls back." And
Oh,
that broke my heart.
wow.
It's like, okay,
Conviction.
yes, yeah, major conviction. And so that year I wrote a devotional. That's kind of how Uncommon Teen started. And then 2021 started the Uncommon Teen podcast and started
Mm.
coaching that year. So
Oh, I'm so thankful. And, for those of you who are listening without watching the video, Jamie like was tearing up. Like I could see her eyes just glossing over and the reflection of the light in the room coming, bouncing off of her beautiful eyes. That just shows your heart, Jamie. That shows that, this is the motive of your heart is pure. It's in this. It's part of your test and it's become your testimony and it's therefore your mission. And it's becoming, well, it's obvious that this is God's will for your life. And to have known that from such a young age, that's pretty powerful. I had no idea that you were in ministry this long. And I'm just so thankful that you're doing what you're doing. This isn't easy. And teens these days need people like you because I don't know how old you are, but when I was a teenager, we didn't have nearly the problems. We didn't have the obstacles. We didn't have the real life drama and the things that they're dealing with. I know, for me, when I was our middle daughter's age, I was still playing with Barbies. Like I still loved it. Now, she's not had Barbies for like 5 years. And I don't understand that. So there's definitely a need for what you're doing. And so you're actively coaching teens. Do you do private coaching, group coaching? Tell us a little bit about that.
yeah, so I do one-on-one coaching, and it's a 6-month program that we are doing now. And it's amazing. Oh my goodness, like just what God has done. And he literally has written this whole program. I sat back and was like, God, I don't know what I'm doing. And he's
Right.
like, just listen to me. And I sat down
Right.
with him one day and he showed me this program, and I've seen girls, oh my goodness. Like some girls have been to therapy, and I'm not saying that like counseling
No,
is bad, and like
yeah.
I'm not saying anything like that, but they've been to like therapy and it's not helping them. And they come and like God just makes them free. And like I don't take credit for that. Like I'm just honored that I get to be a part of it.
Yep,
Like it's all God. And so like
it
these
is.
girls, like you were saying, like it was when I was a teenager, you kind of knew the ones that were depressed. You knew the
Right.
ones that were kind of like you could really tell. But some
Right.
of these girls that I coach on the outside, they look like they've got it all together. They're
Right.
athletes. They're
Right.
like, I mean, they're doing really well. And then like one of them in particular, I can think of, her mom found her journal and would not have known that she was suicidal if she did not find her journal. And so like it just breaks my heart. Like
Right.
like they're hiding all this inside of them.
Right.
And so whenever we got done with our coaching program and she was ready to move on, it was like she told me, she's like, I've never felt this free ever.
Oh, yes.
John 8:32, it says that it's the truth, the word of God that we know that makes us free. And like, so that's what our coaching is based off of. It's based off of the word of God. And so I do one-on-one coaching. And then I also have the SOAR coaching community.
Yeah.
And so I love the SOAR coaching community. This is just a group of girls. They all have the same vision in mind. They want to go after Jesus with everything that
Right.
they've got.
Right.
They want to build friends who are Christians that love God too and are on the same path
Yeah.
that they're on.
Yeah.
And so it's just really fun. Like inside of that group, we do coaching, like live coaching calls once a month. And then we also do SOAR nights, which are game nights where they get to just hang out and have fun and laugh. And then we've just started implementing recently hangout nights where like everybody gets to pick like a craft project, anything that they want to do. Some people color, some paint, like,
Yes.
and we just hang out and talk. And like, it's all about building that friendship and growing with God.
And I'm so thankful that you have that and you've not allowed, proximity to keep you from doing this. Meaning, a lot of people think that you have to do this kind of youth build up and create this kind of fellowship and things in person, which is clearly there's, the need for that. But even now where there's a virtual option, this is a virtual option. And I speak from experience, I have my oldest daughter, 16. She's really, struggling because she's deep into her faith and that's not very common. So it's very uncommon, right? Here we are. Excuse me. And then my middle daughter, she's 13. She just went to church camp for the first time with her older sister. And she came back and she said, I feel like for the first time I was around actual Christians because all of my friends claimed to be a Christian and none of them acted like the young ladies and the women I was around at camp. And so what I love about what you're doing is it gives them that opportunity to see that they're meant to be set apart, that it's intended for them to be uncommon. They don't need to look like everybody else. They're expected to be different. And that's good. And that's beautiful. You give them that community and that safe place to be that.
Yeah. And then they also encourage each other. Like if they're walking through something or, somebody comes up and they're like, okay, I have this question. I'm not really sure how to deal with this. Like they get to encourage each other. Hey, this is what I did. And this is what I did. Or they come to me and they're like, help. What do we do in this situation? And so it just offers that place of like, how do we take this Christianity into real life? Because we look around us and like you said, or your daughter was saying, like there are a lot of people who say that they're Christians, but they're not walking it. And so what does that look like? How do we live that out in the world?
Yeah, because even as parents, and that's where I love, that you and I, both as Christian coaches, as Christian life coaches, we're able to take the tools and apply it to our parenting. And, I've been doing a lot on my podcast about helping parents to understand how to coach their children because there's such a completely different dynamic, number one, between being an example of what authentic Christianity needs to look like and living that out and taking your children to church with you and all of these things and, having youth group and prioritizing the right things, but also coaching them because as you and I both know, teens a lot of times they know what to do. They're just not thinking and their heads aren't turned on in the way that we want. And so us as coaches, when we coach our teens, it helps them to start thinking for themselves. It helps them to start processing, all right, what should I do? What do I know in this moment I should do versus what is everybody else doing? What feels uncomfortable? What do I know? Because that really helps them cut between, spirit and soul and get to that next level. So about your SOAR group, you did say SOAR, right? I think I remember seeing that. It's called SOAR. How does somebody go about getting into that community if they want to put their child into it, their teenager?
Yeah, so going to uncommonteen.com, there is a tab on there that says join the community.
Okay.
It's the only way that we allow girls into the community, and it may seem like kind of crazy, but in the world that we live in, it's absolutely necessary. Is I do need to get on a call, one-on-one Zoom call, and just to get to know you, get to know your daughter, make sure it's a good fit. And I say that because there are so many people out there who want to prey on our kids. And so I'm like, in order to stop that from happening, I do not have a link that's directly to the SOAR community. They have to go through a call. And then after that call, if they decide, hey, this is great, we want to do this, then I'll send the link for them to be able to sign up for the SOAR community.
Now, so is the community on social media? Like, is it in a private Facebook group or?
It is not. It is not any social media platform. It's actually on my website. I have a community feature on my website. And so it's all like disconnected from, but it looks a lot like Facebook.
Yeah.
You can post like pictures and memes and videos and things like that. Like it looks a lot like that, but it's not connected to social media at all.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Because even, my daughter, she's not on social media, so I love that. I think that's fantastic. And that's a good disconnect.
Yes.
It really is a good disconnect. So I know that you have a conference coming up and I'm so excited about this. And I know that you're calling it Dare to Be, right? That's the conference title. Is that right?
Yes.
No, it is. Okay, good.
It's Uncommon Teen Live is what
Uncommon Teen Live.
Like but like the subtitle is like Dare
Yeah.
to Be. And like if you can see like a video behind me, you see like there's a picture behind
Yes.
me that says Dare to Be
Yeah.
Beautiful, one that says Dare to Shine. And then there's a third kind of topic in there that we talk about as Dare to Be Confident. And it's God confidence versus self-confidence. And so that's where Dare to Be comes from. It's from like those three different, I
Yeah.
guess, topics that we kind of hit
Yeah.
on.
I love that because what you're saying in what you just shared is basically you're giving young ladies, teens, a how do I want to say this? Permission to be authentically who they are allowed to be in Christ and who they are. You're showing them their identity. You're telling them this is who you are made to be, and it's okay. And you're allowed and run, go do it really well, go against everybody else. And it's almost like we have to say to them, dare to be, because it really does take courage to do that.
Yeah, that's exactly why I use that word dare. A lot of people ask
Yeah,
me like, why is it a dare? And I'm like, because it takes courage and boldness
so
to
much
step out.
courage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially in the world that we live in.
I know. Can you imagine being a teenager and just being so filled with who you know you are in Christ, where you are right now, Jamie, and being that when you were 16? Can you imagine? Like, what could we have done with this planet, right? If
Yes.
we'd known that. That is amazing. That is amazing. So tell
So
us, it's coming up July 19th and 20th, and you go to uncommonteenlive.com to get your tickets and all of that. But if I've said that correctly, what can we expect at the event?
So the event, one thing my daughter and I, we actually went to several events or several conferences that were specifically for teen girls. And we're like, okay, so what is already out there? Because,
Yeah.
we don't want to, like what are we seeing? Like, what is the state of conferences today? Because
Right.
that was one thing that I found out in 2020 whenever I was kind of researching, starting the Uncommon Teen or Uncommon Teen podcast.
Right.
I was doing some research and I was finding out the state of youth ministry today is like, it breaks my heart. Youth pastors
Mm.
don't even know the Bible for themselves. And like, I
Wow.
was in some groups, and some of the youth pastors inside those groups were like, tonight's service, so what should I teach about? And I'm like, if you haven't already figured that out, like if God hasn't already, like you don't know, you've lost
Wow.
these teens.
Yes.
And so
Right.
like it just kind of broke my heart. And so we decided to go around to different conferences, and we went to one specifically. We traveled out of state to go to this one. And it was like this big thing. But like, I remember sitting down and they had an ask me or like a panel. I call it ask me anything at my conference, but they
Right.
had
Yeah.
a panel. And on that panel, they had different questions that girls had put in the box for them to answer. And I remember just listening to the answers. And I was like, I looked at my daughter and I said, "Are you learning anything?" She's
Wow.
like, she's like, I don't even understand their answers. Like, I could
Yeah.
not apply their answers. And I remember one question that they asked was like, this person said, I have a friend who is a very toxic friend. It's leading me in the wrong direction. What would you suggest that I do?
Yeah.
And their answer to that question was, pray about it. God will take them out of your life. And I'm like, what? Like, what? Like, is this what
Right.
we're teaching?
Right.
So like, I looked at my daughter and I was like, this
No,
this breaks my heart.
it
It
does.
breaks my heart. And so I sat down with my daughter. She was probably maybe 14 at the time. She's
Mm-hmm.
17 now. And
Mm-hmm.
so I sat down with her and we talked about, what are some things that you would like to see at a conference? And so one thing that makes Uncommon Teen Live different is one, we're going to give, like, if you know anything about the Uncommon Teen podcast, and if you don't, go and listen to it because it
Right.
is all about like the real life challenges that they're walking through, things
The
that not
real things.
people are
Yeah.
talking to or
Yeah.
talking about,
Yeah.
and it gives answers like that go back to the word of God. And so like we give answers, but not only that, I didn't want them to just get a whole bunch of information.
Mhm.
I wanted them to apply it. So we actually have like times after every single session where they will break out in groups of girls that are around their age,
Mhm.
and they will actually do an activity that helps them to internalize
I
what they're
love that.
learning so that they can take it and apply it once they
Right.
get home. Because I
Right.
mean, how many times have you been to a conference where it's like so much information and it's
Right.
like, what do I do with all this? It just sits in a
Yeah.
notebook and you might
Yeah.
apply a couple things, but it's like,
Right.
it's not, you don't really internalize it unless you go
No.
back and really study. And so that's one of the things that I really wanted to make sure that was different, that it was actions hands on. Let's
So
let's
good.
get in there and see what does this actually really look like. So there's
Yeah.
one part. that we did last year about sharing their story. And so
Yeah.
I talked about how do you share your story? I call it story testimony. But how do you share that with the people around you? And so we walked through step by step what that looks like. And then they sat down and wrote out their stories and then practiced their stories with the other girls that were in the room.
I love
And
that.
then some of the brave ones got up on stage and shared their story with all the rest of everybody. And so like they're practicing they know their story now so that they
Yeah.
can go out and say, somebody's hurting, somebody's broken. Hey, I've been there too. You know,
Right.
for me, I struggled with depression before I
Right.
came to Jesus, and he changed my life. And so like just sharing that story, and that's one thing I absolutely love about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I can
But
see that. And
yeah,
I love that you're teaching them this because you're showing them how to walk out their faith, but also with focusing on the story, you're helping them to create a bridge, from where that person is that they're talking to them so that they can see how crossing that bridge to Christ becomes the answer and how that person can be identified in their story and they can see how God worked through them. And that's a difference maker. And that's a great way to instill confidence in our youth so that they also get comfortable being a witness, right? Like not just letting their lives be a witness, but also not being afraid to witness. Because I think if we're taught in the way that you're teaching at such a young age how to witness, we can change the world,
yeah, absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, we just got back from a mission trip and we took 20 teenagers with us to Jamaica.
Wow.
And we don't like stay on the resort side. We go
Right.
into Jamaica.
Right.
That's the world country part. And I got to watch my kids. I have a 17-year-old daughter and a 15-year-old son together. They led 25 people to Jesus one-on-one. And like that to me, like that just as a parent, can
Right.
you want anything else?
Right. And Jamie, that speaks to your heart. That speaks to, how you've made so much space for God in your heart and in your ministry of motherhood, right? Like you and your husband coming together and just being who maybe you didn't have and being who your children need you to be so that they can go out and glorify God with their lives. And so I'm just so proud of you guys because that truly is uncommon, right? Like that's uncommon in this world. And I love that you've given them that experience and you've exposed them to the other side of Jamaica. I mean, right? Because as soon as you said Jamaica, I thought beach, I thought, palm trees, I thought all the things. But you're right. I mean, anywhere. Like I remember being in Cozumel and going behind the ocean front and seeing the huts and I think that I really feel like that's a great mission experience for all teenagers to really have perspective with how much we have in this world and in this country of ours.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
absolutely.
powerful.
Yeah.
So for your event, you have an online portion as well, so we can get tickets to join virtually.
Yes.
What can we expect with our virtual ticket?
So with the virtual ticket, you're going to get the videos online. Obviously, like you can watch the conference in
Yeah,
person, you can go back and watch it later. And
right.
then also you're going to get packets that actually show you, okay, what are some the activities that you
Oh, I
can do at
love
home
that.
so
Yeah,
that you can put a watch party together and like invite your friends over
yeah,
and for your teen girls invite their friends over. And it's for
right.
moms and teen girls. There's
Yeah,
going to be a breakout session, and this probably is going to be done a little bit different because obviously I can't stream both things at one
right,
time.
right.
But we're going to have the Ask Me Anything question and answer panel. And then at that same time, we're also going to do a breakout session just for moms. And so
Oh,
I'll probably send that link out later. I've got to talk to my audiovisual people, see what what they're going to do. Uh,
right.
but but yeah, there's going to be it's for moms too. There were moms last year like that came in, they did the activities with other moms. And so
Oh,
it's so neat. And I say moms, but also it could be youth leaders, it could be
right.
mentors, it could be, I mean, anybody really that can come in and get this information. But
Okay.
yeah, bring your friends together and
Yeah.
hang out and make some popcorn and have some fun
Yeah.
and
Oh, that's what I'm envisioning. So
yeah.
this is going to be July 19th and 20th. And tell us exactly where it is and by when we need to have tickets and all of that.
So it's just outside of Nashville, Tennessee at a resort, or I call it a resort. It's a retreat at a
Yeah.
retreat center. But it's called Sheep Gate Retreat. And yeah, so it's in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, so just outside of Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
And yeah, so it starts at, I believe the doors open at 6 o'clock on Friday night, and we go to about 9. And actually, the conference ends a little bit early. And so for those of you viewing online, you probably won't get to be a part of this, but
Right,
we're gonna
right.
do like karaoke, we're gonna do like crazy
Oh
stuff,
no.
have fun, get like just
Yes.
like be kids, have fun.
Right, right, right.
Get to know
And
each other, build those friendships.
yeah,
And then the next day we start back up at I think 9 o'clock in the morning, and then
okay.
we go to about 4. So
Wonderful. And you'll have, I presume you're going to have vendors there and
yes,
like tables where if people want to go up and see other Christian resources that are available to them, that's an option. And
yes.
so is this going to become a new annual thing for Uncommon Teen?
Yes, that's my heart is, and my
Mm.
heart is too, and this is really something that's awesome, is tickets were just last week were $59 a person, which I have in my heart that I want to get it to, like, I don't want finances to be a reason why people have to
Mhm.
turn away from this conference. And we just had a sponsor step up this week and then a couple more stepping up. And so we have already actually yesterday drop the ticket prices to $20 a person. And so live stream tickets are $19 and in-person tickets are $20 each. And so I don't, like I said, I don't want finances to be a reason why people are like, well, I can't go. And so
Yeah,
I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to
yeah,
try to find as many sponsors as I can to get that
I
price
love
down so that
that.
we can have the event covered, that
Right,
everybody gets paid for what they do, but also
right.
these girls can come in and just not think about finances.
Yeah. And I love this because for youth leaders out there, this is a tremendous like youth retreat in a box. Like all they have to do is add teens to a van and go.
Yeah.
And you've done all of the rest, right? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, what else would you like us to know? Because I'm sure I probably didn't ask anything. Is there anything I didn't cover that you would like parents or teens, anybody to know that we've not talked about?
Really, one of the things I was thinking about was just where the name Uncommon Teen comes from,
Yes, I'd love to hear.
because I know we've kind of alluded to it a couple times
Yeah.
throughout the podcast episode, but where the name Uncommon comes from, Uncommon Teen, is it comes from I can't even speak. It comes from Acts 4:13, and it
Okay.
talks about how Peter and John, how they were just normal men. They were untrained, they weren't educated, they weren't like these super smart people. They're just common men. If you read it in the Amplified Classic version, it says common men who had no educational advantages. And
Mhm.
yet the crowd marveled when they heard them speak because they could tell they'd been with Jesus. And so that's where the uncommon teen comes from, is, you know what, we can seem like we're common. Like there's really nothing special
Right.
about us. And for years I thought that. I was like, well, who am I? I'm just I was average at music. I was average at whatever,
Yeah.
average at school. I'm not really great at anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how we feel
Doesn't.
about ourselves, because if we spend time with Jesus, he's going to transform our lives and
Right.
he's going to make us uncommon.
Amen. I love that. I love that. I'm so thankful that you shared that with us because I really feel like it drives home the heart and the message behind Uncommon Teen. And it, like I said, it's where you're just even through that title and even through the Dare to Be, the subtitle category for the live event, it's really giving permission to teens to authentically just be allowed to be themselves.
Yeah.
And that's good. And that's right. Be the light, be the salt, be all of those things, but you're gonna have to dare to do it because it's gonna take a great amount of courage to be uncommon. And that's excellent. And I
Yeah.
love that because you even use the word marvel, right? Like because that's, typically we only see Jesus marveling at faith, at anybody's faith twice in the Bible, right? And that's where he's really wowed, and he's either wowed by their faith or their lack of faith. And I love this because you're really,